Yes, please. With him, he's a very strong leader. We have peace in the Middle East. It's a great thing, and nobody's ever seen anything quite like it. Syria is a very big, yes, please.
The Syria president, sir, could you update us on your meeting? Did you come to any agreements?
Say it?
With the leader of Syria you had earlier, did you come to any agreements today?
Well, I had an agreement with him. He's a very strong leader. He comes from a very tough place, and he's a tough guy. I liked him. I get along with him. The new president of Syria. And we'll do everything we can to make Syria successful because that's part of the Middle East. We have peace now in the Middle East, first time that anyone can remember that ever happening. As you know, Syria is a very big part of the Middle East, very important part. If you look back at Syria for years, they had the doctors, the lawyers, they had so many of the great intellects. It's an amazing place with great people, and we want to see Syria be successful along with the rest of the Middle East. So I have confidence that he'll be able to do the job, absolutely.
Okay, so imagine you're watching what's supposed to be a routine White House meeting or press event. Maybe it's about military policy or national security. And Donald Trump is there, along with current and former military leadership. The cameras are rolling. It's being broadcast live. And then, out of nowhere, everything explodes. A 4-star general, someone who served at the highest levels of military command, directly confronts Trump, not with careful diplomatic language, not with veiled criticism, but with the most damning accusation you can make against the president. The general looks Trump in the eye and calls him a traitor, says Trump betrayed the Constitution, betrayed his oath, and betrayed the country. The room goes silent. Trump's face changes, and within moments he storms out of the meeting while cameras are still rolling. And then he goes on Truth Social and Fox News to attack the general's disloyalty and demand punishment from the Pentagon. But before we go any further, real quick, let's be honest, you can't really trust headlines anymore. That's why we built Pump Politics to bring you real stories, real context, and no corporate spin. If you want to stay ahead of the headlines, join our free newsletter. We'll send the news straight to your inbox every day. Just click the link in the description to join. And if you just want to support what we're doing, join us, be part of the community that actually cares about the truth. All right, let's get back to the video.
And people said he's had a rough past. We've all had rough pasts. But he has had a rough past. And I think, frankly, if you didn't have a rough past, you wouldn't have a chance. He gets along very well with Turkey, with President Erdogan, who's a great leader. Erdogan's a great leader. And very much in favor of what's happening in Syria. We have to make Syria work. Syria is a big part of the Middle East. And I will tell you, I think it is working and really well. We're working also with Israel on, getting along with Syria, getting along with everybody. And that's working amazingly. As you know, Hamas has given us back numerous bodies. It sounds pretty gruesome, but it's something the parents want more than if their son had been living. Hard to believe. I've seen all of the parents, so many of the parents, and getting back the body of their son, their dead son, is as vital to them, as important to them, as if the boy was alive. And as you know, over the last 4 or 5 days, we've gotten a lot of the additional bodies that they said they were going to. They've worked very hard to do that. So we have peace in the Middle East. It's a great thing, and nobody's ever seen anything quite like it.
Subscribe to One India and never miss an update.
This actually happened in November 2025, and the footage has gone viral across every media platform because this isn't just another political disagreement or partisan attack. This is a 4-star general, someone who dedicated their life to serving the nation, who swore an oath to defend the Constitution, publicly accusing a sitting or former president of treason on live television. That's unprecedented in American history. Generals don't do this. The military maintains civilian control. Officers don't publicly attack presidents, even presidents they disagree with. The fact that this general felt compelled to break with decades of military tradition and make this accusation tells you how serious the situation has become. The general, widely believed to be former Joint Chiefs Chairman Mark Milley, though other top generals have also been critical of Trump, didn't just throw out the word traitor casually. According to reports from people who were in the room and from the footage that's been circulating, the general gave specific reasons. He cited Trump's undermining of American democratic values, his contacts with foreign adversaries, his decisions during the final days of his presidency that endangered national security. He pointed to Trump's attempts to use the armed forces for personal political purposes, and he said all of this directly to Trump's face, on camera, with the whole country watching. Trump's reaction was immediate and explosive. He didn't try to rebut the accusations. He didn't provide explanations or context. He just got angry, made comments about the deep state and disloyal generals, and stormed out of the room. And then within hours, he was on social media and friendly news outlets attacking the general personally, calling him names, demanding the Pentagon investigate and punish him, claiming the general was part of a conspiracy to undermine his presidency. It was classic Trump deflection, attack the accuser rather than address the accusations, but it also revealed how rattled he was by being publicly called a traitor by someone with the credibility and authority of a four-star general. The Pentagon's response has been carefully measured, but also revealing. Top Pentagon officials defended the general's integrity and service record. They declined to take any punitive action against him for speaking out. That's significant because it means military leadership is, at least to some extent, backing the general's right to speak, even if they're not explicitly endorsing every word he said. It's a sign that Trump's demands for retribution aren't being followed, which itself is a form of institutional resistance to Trump's attempts to politicize the military. The history between Trump and his generals is long and ugly. Trump has repeatedly accused Milley and other military leaders of treason on social media. He's suggested they deserve death for decisions they made. He's claimed they undermined his presidency and worked against American interests. Meanwhile, former national security advisors and other officials who served under Trump have accused him of betraying national interests for political gain, of being too cozy with authoritarian foreign leaders, of making decisions that benefited adversaries rather than America. So this public confrontation didn't come out of nowhere. It's the culmination of years of escalating tension between Trump and military leadership. What makes this moment so dramatic is that it happened live on camera in a setting where both Trump and the general knew the whole country would see it. The general could have made these accusations privately or in a book or in congressional testimony, but he chose to do it publicly, directly to Trump, in a way that couldn't be ignored or spun. That suggests he believes the stakes are high enough to break with tradition and norms, that he thinks Trump's actions are serious enough to warrant public accusation of treason, despite the personal and professional risks. The political implications are enormous. Democrats are seizing on this as validation of everything they've been saying about Trump. A decorated four-star general calling Trump a traitor carries weight that partisan political attacks don't. It gives credibility to accusations about Trump undermining democracy and national security. Republicans are in an awkward position, trying to defend Trump while not wanting to attack a respected military leader. Trump's base is rallying around him and attacking the general as part of the deep state, but even some Trump supporters are uncomfortable with the level of conflict between Trump and military leadership. So buckle up, because we're about to break down exactly what the general said, why this confrontation is unprecedented, what it reveals about Trump's relationship with the military, and what consequences might follow from this historic moment. This is about civil-military relations, presidential accountability, and whether American democratic institutions can survive internal conflict at the highest levels. All right, let's dig into exactly what happened during this confrontation, because the details matter enormously. The setting was apparently some kind of White House meeting or press event involving military matters. The exact nature of the event isn't entirely clear from all sources, but what's clear is that cameras were present and rolling, making this a very public spectacle. Trump was there, along with current and former military leadership. The general in question, most likely Mark Milley, based on the history and context, was also present. According to witnesses and footage that's been circulating, the confrontation started when Trump made comments criticizing military leadership or defending some of his controversial decisions regarding the military. The general apparently decided this was the moment to speak up, and what he said was explosive. He directly addressed Trump and said, "You betrayed the Constitution, you betrayed your oath, and you betrayed your country." Those are the reported words. Not disagreed with policy, not made bad decisions. Betrayed. That's the language of treason, and everyone in the room knew it. The general went on to give specific examples, according to reports. He mentioned Trump's contacts with foreign leaders that seemed to prioritize Trump's personal interests over American interests. He referenced decisions during Trump's final days in office that military leaders found dangerous or inappropriate. He talked about Trump's attempts to use the military for political purposes, including deploying troops against protesters or using military imagery for campaign purposes. And he framed all of this as betrayal of the fundamental values and obligations that come with being president. Trump's immediate reaction was anger. According to people in the room, his face reddened. He started to respond, but seemed too angry to form coherent arguments. He made comments about the deep state and generals who never supported him. And then he stood up and walked out of the meeting while it was still ongoing and cameras were still rolling. That exit itself became a viral moment because it showed Trump unable or unwilling to defend himself against serious accusations from a respected military figure. Within hours, Trump was on Truth Social posting about the incident. He called the general a disgrace to the uniform. He accused him of being part of a conspiracy to undermine his presidency. He claimed the general had always been disloyal and worked against American interests. And most significantly, he demanded that the Pentagon investigate and punish the general for what Trump characterized as insubordination and disloyalty. Trump wanted consequences, wanted the general to face repercussions for speaking out. The Pentagon's response was carefully calibrated. Top officials released statements defending the general's decades of distinguished service. They noted his integrity and dedication to the Constitution, and they made clear that no punitive action would be taken against him for expressing his views. That response is significant because it means military leadership is refusing Trump's demands for retribution. They're protecting the general's right to speak, even though his words were harsh in public. That's institutional resistance to Trump's attempt to weaponize the military chain of command against critics. Let's talk about the history here, because this confrontation didn't happen in a vacuum. Trump and Mark Milley, if he's indeed the general in question, have had a fraught relationship for years. Milley served as chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff during part of Trump's presidency. And according to multiple books and reports, he was deeply uncomfortable with some of Trump's decisions and statements. The famous incident where Trump wanted to use active duty military to suppress protests after George Floyd's death apparently led to heated discussions between Trump and Milley. Milley later apologized for appearing in a photo op with Trump that day, saying he shouldn't have been there. After Trump lost the 2020 election, reports emerged that Milley and other military leaders were concerned about what Trump might do during the transition. There were fears he might try to use military force to stay in power or to create chaos that would prevent the transition. Milley reportedly had conversations with Chinese officials, assuring them the U.S. wasn't planning any military actions, which led to Trump accusing him of treason. So there's a long history of mutual distrust and accusation between Trump and his top generals. Trump has repeatedly called Milley a traitor on social media. He suggested Milley deserves execution for his actions. These aren't subtle criticisms. These are extreme accusations from a former president against a serving military officer, and they've created an atmosphere where military leaders feel they can't trust Trump, and Trump feels he can't trust military leaders. That breakdown in civil-military relations is dangerous for national security and democratic governance. Other former Trump national security officials have also accused Trump of betraying American interests. John Bolton, who served as Trump's national security advisor, has made public comments suggesting Trump prioritized his personal relationship with Vladimir Putin over American strategic interests. Bolton characterized some of Trump's foreign policy decisions as aiding adversaries and undermining allies. That's coming from someone who worked closely with Trump in a senior national security role. So when the general called Trump a traitor on live television, he was echoing concerns that multiple former officials have expressed. He was giving voice to fears that exist within military and intelligence communities about Trump's judgment, loyalty, and decision-making. The difference is he did it publicly, directly, in a way that couldn't be ignored or dismissed as anonymous sourcing or partisan politics. The legal and ethical questions here are complex. Military officers are supposed to follow civilian leadership and not publicly criticize the president. That's a core principle of American civil-military relations. But officers also swear an oath to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. If a general believes the president is acting against the Constitution or national interests, what's his obligation? Should he stay silent out of respect for civilian control, or should he speak out to defend the Constitution he swore to protect? The general apparently decided that speaking out was more important than maintaining traditional norms of military silence. That suggests he believes Trump's actions are serious enough to warrant breaking with tradition, that the threat to the Constitution is greater than the risk of politicizing the military by having a general publicly accuse a president. That's a judgment call, and reasonable people might disagree about whether it was the right decision, but it tells you how serious the general views the situation. Trump's demand for Pentagon punishment is problematic for several reasons. First, it would be using military discipline to punish protected speech. The general wasn't speaking in his official capacity or giving orders. He was expressing personal views about the president's conduct. That's protected by the First Amendment for retired officers. Second, it would politicize the military even further by having the Pentagon punish officers who criticize Trump. That would make the military look like Trump's personal enforcement arm rather than an apolitical professional institution. The fact that the Pentagon refused Trump's demands is important. It shows institutional resistance to improper political pressure. It shows military leadership values protecting officers' rights to speak and maintaining professional standards over pleasing Trump. That's healthy for civil-military relations, even though it angers Trump. The alternative, having the military punish critics to please a president, would be a step toward authoritarianism. The public reaction has been predictably divided along partisan lines. Democrats see this as a decorated military officer confirming their worst fears about Trump. A respected general calling Trump a traitor carries more weight than partisan politicians making the same accusation. It validates concerns about Trump's fitness and loyalty. Republicans are trying to defend Trump by attacking the general as part of the deep state or as a political hack, but that's a tough sell when you're attacking a four-star general with decades of service. Even some Republicans are uncomfortable with that level of conflict. Trump's base is rallying around him, as always. They're claiming the general is part of a conspiracy to undermine Trump. They're attacking his service record and questioning his loyalty. They're framing this as another example of the establishment trying to take down Trump. But polls suggest that military families and veterans, traditionally conservative groups, are increasingly uncomfortable with Trump's attacks on military leadership. Watching a president attack generals and demand they be punished for speaking creates cognitive dissonance for people who respect military service. Okay, let's break this down into core points. Point 1. A four-star general publicly called Trump a traitor on live television during a White House meeting. The general said Trump betrayed the Constitution, his oath, and the country, citing specific concerns about foreign contacts, national security decisions, and attempts to politicize the military. This is unprecedented in American history. Generals don't publicly accuse presidents of treason. The fact that it happened tells you how serious the situation has become. Point 2. Trump immediately stormed out of the meeting and then attacked the general on social media and Fox News, demanding Pentagon punishment. Trump's inability to respond substantively to the accusations, choosing instead to attack and deflect, revealed how rattled he was. And his demand for military discipline against a critic shows he views the Pentagon as his personal enforcement tool rather than an independent institution. Point 3. The Pentagon defended the general's integrity and declined to punish him, showing institutional resistance to Trump's inappropriate demands. This is important because it means military leadership values professional standards and protected speech over pleasing Trump. They're not willing to weaponize military discipline against officers who criticize the president. In point 4, this confrontation is the culmination of years of deteriorating relations between Trump and military leadership. Multiple generals and former national security officials have expressed concerns about Trump's judgment, loyalty, and decision-making. This public accusation of treason brings those concerns into the open in the most dramatic way possible. So why does this matter beyond just dramatic television? First reason, it's about civil-military relations and democratic norms. The military is supposed to be apolitical, following civilian leadership without becoming a political player. But what happens when military leaders believe civilian leadership is betraying the country? The general's decision to speak out publicly represents a fundamental tension in democratic governance. He broke with tradition because he apparently believes Trump's actions are serious enough to warrant it. Second reason, it's about presidential accountability and who has credibility to challenge a president. When partisan politicians accuse Trump of wrongdoing, his supporters dismiss it as political attacks. But when a four-star general with decades of service makes the same accusation, that's harder to dismiss. The general has no obvious political motive. He's risking his reputation and legacy by speaking out. That gives his words weight and credibility that partisan accusations don't have. Third reason, it reveals deep institutional concerns about Trump within the military and national security establishment. This general isn't alone in his views. Multiple former officials have expressed similar concerns. The fact that these concerns have now been aired publicly directly to Trump's face on national television means they can't be ignored or dismissed anymore. This is the military and national security community saying, we have serious problems with this president. Fourth reason, it affects how Trump is perceived by key constituencies, including military families, veterans, and national security professionals. These are traditionally conservative groups that have supported Trump. But watching Trump attack generals and demand punishment for speaking creates doubts. If respected military leaders are calling Trump a traitor, maybe there's something to those concerns. That could erode Trump's support in communities he's relied on politically. Now what comes next? Trump will continue attacking the general and trying to undermine his credibility. He'll call him deep state, suggest he's a political hack, question his service record. Trump's playbook is always attack, never defend. So expect relentless attacks on this general and any other military leaders who express similar concerns. Trump will try to make the story about disloyal generals rather than about his own conduct. The general might speak out more or might stay relatively quiet now that he's made his statement. He's already broken with tradition by publicly calling Trump a traitor. He might feel that was enough, that he's done his duty by warning the country, or he might continue speaking out if he believes ongoing threats exist. We'll see how he handles the inevitable attacks from Trump and his supporters. Other military leaders might be emboldened to speak out now that one general has broken the seal. If they've had similar concerns but stayed quiet out of respect for norms, this public confrontation might give them permission to speak as well. We could see more retired generals and admirals expressing concerns about Trump. That would create a chorus of military criticism that would be very difficult for Trump to dismiss or overcome. Congress might get involved with hearings or investigations. Democrats will want to explore the general's accusations and what they mean for Trump's fitness. They might call the general to testify formally about his concerns. They might investigate Trump's foreign contacts and decisions that the general referenced. Republicans will resist this, but the political pressure might make some kind of congressional response inevitable. The media will analyze and reanalyze the footage and the general's words. Experts will be brought on cable news to discuss implications for civil-military relations, presidential accountability, and national security. The story will generate think pieces and op-eds about whether the general was right to speak out and what his accusations mean for democracy. It'll dominate news cycles for days or weeks. Trump's legal troubles could be affected. If the general is willing to testify formally about Trump's conduct, that could provide evidence in criminal investigations or civil cases. Prosecutors might want to know more about the foreign contacts and national security decisions the general referenced. The accusation of betraying the country could inform charges or arguments about Trump's intent and conduct. Here's my take. The general's decision to call Trump a traitor publicly was extraordinary and necessary. When a president's actions threaten the Constitution and national security, military leaders who've sworn oaths to defend that Constitution have a duty to speak out even if it breaks with tradition. The general apparently concluded that staying silent would be a greater betrayal than speaking publicly. That judgment reflects how serious he views Trump's conduct. Trump's response, storming out and demanding punishment rather than addressing the accusations, is revealing. If the general's claims were false or unfair, Trump could refute them with facts and arguments. But he didn't do that. He just attacked and deflected. That suggests he knows the accusations have merit and he can't defend himself substantively. So he falls back on his standard playbook of attacking accusers and claiming victimhood. The Pentagon's refusal to punish the general is important for maintaining military professionalism and independence. If they caved to Trump's demands, it would have politicized the military even further and created a chilling effect where no officer would dare criticize the president. By defending the general's right to speak, the Pentagon protected an important principle even at the cost of angering Trump. The broader issue here is whether American institutions can handle a president who some credible observers believe is betraying the country. That's an extreme accusation, not one to be made lightly, but when a four-star general makes it publicly, it demands attention. It forces a national conversation about Trump's conduct, his fitness, and whether our institutions have mechanisms to address a president who's viewed by some as a threat to the nation he's supposed to lead. So where does this leave us? A respected four-star general has publicly called Trump a traitor on live television. Trump stormed out and is demanding punishment. The Pentagon is refusing to comply. Years of tension between Trump and military leadership have exploded into public view, and the country is grappling with fundamental questions about presidential accountability, civil-military relations, and how to handle credible accusations of presidential betrayal. This is unprecedented territory. We don't have clear precedents for how to handle a situation where military leaders believe the president is betraying the country. The general's decision to speak out publicly forces everyone, military, Congress, courts, the public, to confront these questions rather than allowing them to remain in the background. That's uncomfortable and potentially destabilizing, but it might be necessary if the alternative is allowing serious abuses to continue unchecked. Stay tuned, because this story will continue developing. More voices might join the general in expressing concerns. Trump's attacks will intensify. Congress might investigate. Media will keep analyzing. And the fundamental questions about Trump's conduct and fitness will remain at the center of American political discourse. This moment, a general calling Trump a traitor to his face on live TV, will be studied in history books as either a warning that was heeded or one that was ignored. Which it becomes depends on what happens next.